listening to Behind the Quilts, a podcast that gives you a look behind the curtain at our vast quilting world. My name's Rona Herman. I'm an author, teacher, blogger, and pattern designer, best known as the Traveling Quilter from RonaTheRibbitter.com. Each month, I'm sitting down with quilting industry insiders to give you a one-of-a-kind look behind the quilts. Welcome to Behind the Quilts, where you get a look behind the curtain at our vast quilting world. I'm Rona from the fabulous traveling quilter blog, RonaTheRibbitter.com. And today we're actually discussing quilt shows. So I thought it'd be fun to bring in a couple of friends of mine that are quilt show vendors and non-quilt show vendors. So let me introduce you to our guests. First, we'll start with non-quilt show vendor, which is Kim. Kim, introduce yourself and tell us about your business.
Hey, my name is Kim Ratchford, and I am the owner of Stitched in Purple. I'm a long armor and pattern designer, and a frequent flyer at quilt shows.
Very good. Okay, and fresh from the Daytona show, we have Jan from Thimbles for You. Tell us a little bit about you.
I am a silversmith, and I make and sell sterling silver thimbles and sewing tools. And so I go to a lot of quilt shows. My inventory is much smaller than most quilt show vendors, but it's very heavy. So I was doing a lot of weightlifting on airplanes today, and I'm home finally.
Yay. Okay, and then of course we have Julie and Rick, our duo team. So tell us a little bit about your business off the wall.
We are the manufacturers of quilting rulers and portable design walls and a couple of unique templates. And we travel around in an extended sprinter van named Maxine, and it's wrapped in a quilt. So a lot of people have seen us with that. And we go to a lot of quilt shows too, but we drive and haul all our stuff in. And then we help Jan sometimes, help her too, and she helps us. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And about 96% of what we sell now, we manufacture ourselves.
That's awesome. Okay, so the first question, kind of do like a back and forth type thing. So I'm going to start with Kim, who is our non-show vendor. So I'm just curious, when you are planning to go to a quilt show, do you do any research ahead of time? Like, do you research which vendors are going to be at the show or go to their websites?
I do. As soon as I hear about the show coming to town or a listing of possibly a new show I've never been to, I'm going to go to the vendor list, see who's coming. And then if I see a familiar face, then I kind of know, but I may go look at their website and see if they mention something new. If I see anything new. As far as vendors that I'm unfamiliar with, yes, I go to their website and see what they do. But once I get to the show, I'm looking for familiar faces first.
That's interesting. So Julie, for the shows, I know that we've talked before about vendors putting their website out there so people can check them out before the shows. What kind of stuff do you guys usually do, or do you do any advertising before the shows that you're going to be at?
Well, we have a page on our website that lists which shows that we're going to be at, and we struggle a little bit with that to keep it up to date. Rick's taken that on, and he's doing a better job than I was. We just really try to keep our website really accessible and working well, because we can only take maybe 20 to 25% of our products with us. So we have a much more extended variety or line on the website. And so, yeah, we do want to give people a good overall view of what they can find. And it's been interesting because people have been showing up with lists that they've made of products they saw on our website, and they want to touch and feel them. And we love that, but we don't know what they're going to want to see. So, that's a little bit of a challenge, but we're also encouraging people now to look and go ahead and pre-order if they want. And we'll make sure we bring their specific items to the quilt show. And then there's no shipping charges, and they know we have what they want. So we're trying to figure out how to best utilize our website along with shows too.
That's cool. That's a good idea. And Jan, I know you have, I see your posts all the time on Facebook about which shows you're going to be at. What all do you do for the advertising?
I've been working a lot harder at getting the advertising out there. Social media is more important with my business now. I make sure that it's on Facebook at least twice and on Twitter at least twice. And I do a monthly email blast, and I always put like the next coming month's worth of shows in there. And I try to even get the whole list together for the January or February email blast. So that does help. And we were talking about what goes to the show and what doesn't. I'm kind of the opposite of Julie and Rick, because I bring a lot of one-of-a-kind stuff to the show that never shows up on the website.
Oh, that's interesting.
Stuff on the website that doesn't show up at the show. I have stuff at the show that never shows up on the website. So I am more of an artist, and I have some ADD. And so the production work is killing me. And so there's a lot of one-of-a-kinds. After I've done a whole day of production work, the last half hour is goof off and make something fun. So those are the ones that show up at the shows. I'm not going to put every one of those goofy things onto the website. They'll just be at the shows.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Kim, back to you. When you go to the show and you're walking in, like you first get to the vendor section, and you're kind of walking through, what do you think catches your attention? Like, what are some of the things that would make you stop at a booth and walk over?
Okay, like I said before, a familiar face. So if I walked into the show venue and immediately saw a familiar face, that's the direction I'm going. And I don't know, even though we don't know each other, it's like going to your favorite shop in the mall. You want to go where you know what they sell and where you're comfortable. You've been there before. But other than that, color. If there's color in your booth, like above head level, because you can't see through the people that are in front of you, it's got to be above. So that's what catches my eye.
That's interesting. So for the vendors, we'll start with you, Jan, because you obviously have your specialty with the silversmith and the thimbles. How did you decide on the configuration for your booth?
Mine is a challenge because all my thimbles have to be tried on and fitted. And so I have developed a display system where each one of the thimbles is on a 36-inch little string, and it retracts. And so they keep putting themselves away, and everybody gets a big kick out of that because they kind of pull right out of your hand. And I kind of started out when I first started doing shows, I had a quilt that I brought along every time, but then people were kind of looking for a quilt, and that's not what I sell. And finally, some other brilliant vendors said to me, why don't you show pictures of your products instead of that quilt? I don't understand why that's there. And I'm like, oh, good idea. So now I bring along an 18 by 20 foam core of a photo of every single one of my thimble artwork, the style. Most of them come in 12 or 18 sizes, but at least there's one picture of each design somewhere behind me. So now my booth is all black and white. My website is also all black and white. The thimbles are the gray, and then I'm on black velvet and with nothing but sterling silver thimbles in the booth. The other thing that I've worked on pretty hard is getting some lighting in there. I've got some little tiny lights now that I can just put on a battery and hang on the display. And that really does help to kind of highlight whatever is going on this month.
Yeah, I've noticed that walking through and when I was doing the vending, looking at the different booths and how they had them set up. And there definitely is a difference with the people that have lights and people that don't. But it also depends, I think, on what they're selling as well. But Julie has, just for, I don't know what word I'm trying to think of. Julie has actually helped me a lot in the vending. Every time I would set up a booth, she would, if she was at the show, would come over and critique it for me very politely, but very bluntly, which I appreciate. So you guys have a much bigger booth than Jan does, because you have a whole lot of very brightly colored, as Kim mentioned, brightly colored rulers and things, that lovely neon color. So same question for you guys. How did you come to the configuration of your guys' booth?
Well, it's constantly evolving, I can tell you that. But we do have the neon green and neon orange rulers, and just a little bit of light really makes them pop. So like Jan was saying, we have some strategic lighting. Sorry if you're hearing a lot of noise. We have a young dog here who's trying to make us play with him.
I do too. Same problem.
He's beating on our legs with his toy. So we always make sure that we have some of the bright rulers right front and center. And then I like brightly colored quilts anyways. So we make sure that we hang those around the booth. And like Kim was saying, we do hang them up high so that they are over people's heads and you can see them across the room. People have told us, I could see your booth from the end of the aisle, and I've been heading towards it. So that is a big deal. We also, there's some things that are important to us. For example, that our booth is always accessible to people on wheels. There's different kinds of wheels, and they often do thank us that they can actually get their scooters in, or walkers, and there's room to move around. I was recently using a little scooter because I broke my toe, and I realized we're doing the right thing. It is important to be accessible to everyone. But we also went to a really simple lighted sign. We've tried a whole bunch of signs, and the one that we grabbed one day just because we had broken one of our other ones was a very simple one I was using for my Zoom classes. And it just has our company name, and it just kind of glows behind us. And that one is the best one we've ever used in our booth. So kind of a happy accident there. And it's really simple. People can easily read it and tell which booth we are. So that's been helping us a lot too.
That's very cool. Yeah, I know for my booth, I figured out which two of my quilt patterns were the most popular that would make people go stop and, wow, that's really neat. And so I would always put those on either side. So no matter which direction they were walking, one of them would hopefully catch them.
Right.
Right. Okay, so back to you, Kim. I'm just curious, at the quilt shows, there's lots of, or usually the bigger shows will have a demonstration stage, or they'll have like make and take projects. How often do you usually participate in those things?
I don't. I would rather see a demo in a booth than up on the stage. I want to be close to the person. I want to, I don't know, look down at the table, be able to reach out and touch, try on the thimbles, that kind of thing. I don't want to be sitting in a chair watching a person on a stage, not for any length of time anyway. You read my mind, because I wanted to mention that I'm drawn to demos in the booth.
Yeah.
So Jan, you working with somebody with their thimbles would attract me to your booth.
I get people, when I start teaching them how to use the thimble, like doing the rocking quilting motion and that sort of thing, there's always 3 or 4 people that stop by and watch for a minute, you know, and then I feel bad for the poor lady that's trying to copy me, because everybody's watching her too.
Well, I know that both Jan and Julie, I've seen you guys do stuff at the big stage, but I know you both also do demonstrations at your booth. So Julie, would you say that you get more attention, I guess, from your demonstrations at the booth or at the demonstration stage, like more interaction?
it's really funny because lots of times the reason people are at the free stage is because they're tired and they just want to sit down and rest.
That's
and
true.
I totally get that. I used to always do that, and I found out about some cool products that way. So I keep that in mind. I'm also very interactive though, even when I'm up on stage, because I want exactly what Kim was saying is for them to come over to my booth and get a closer look. Mm-hmm. And I want them to know I'm approachable and I would love to talk to them. And it's kind of funny because I was just thinking that this weekend, people come hear me on the stage. They come over to my booth and we have videos too, demonstrating our products. They watch the video and then they turn around and come over and watch me do the exam for the third time. And they can ask me questions then. And I just love that. And we're meeting people right where they're at. But my preference is always to be showing people the demonstration. And like Kim says, just with them looking down at my hands and taking them step by step through that. Because I tell people, I don't ever want to be selling that product that you get at home and you go, oh, I can't remember what it did or why I even bought it. Because you know what? I own that product. It's in a drawer over there. And I'm trying not to sell that product. So thanks, Kim. You really affirmed me there.
Well, good.
Awesome. Okay. So that actually took care of the next question that I had. So real quick, just to bring Rick in here, because I did want Rick on here for a reason, because I know that since you guys are a duo team and Julie, you teach at the shows, so Rick kind of takes over the booth when you're not there. But from my experience at the shows with you guys, Rick seems to be like the more popular of the two. Would you say that was more accurate?
I don't know. I've never paid attention.
Oh, come on. The ladies like to flirt. Let's be honest.
Yes.
You can't tell here, but he's a great big guy. He's 6'4", and these little 5-foot ladies are looking up, batting their eyelashes at him. And he'll answer their questions, and then they come back, and I'm there, and they're like, well, I was talking to Mr. Rick. Where's Mr. Rick? And I'm like, well, we let him, walk to the restroom twice a day. Yeah.
Well, that was also another thing, is because there are like duo teams, and Jan was a solo act, and I did both. There were times when I was by myself and other times when I had help. But so having the two of you there together, what kind of roles, like, have you taken on kind of like Rick does this and Julie does this, or is it kind of a go with the flow type thing?
We each have our zones. What do you think is your biggest responsibility?
Checking people out, making sure we've got inventory out on the floor, and running up to the van to get more. It's ruler magic.
It's really kind of funny because it's not Rick's personality to be outgoing, and as you can tell, and so when we decided we were going to do this together, Rick's an engineer by trade. And you know how engineers kind of like to look at you, kind of like they're figuring out what's going on in your brain there. I said to Rick, if we're going to do this, you have to actually interact with people. You can't just stare at them cross-eyed, And he's like, I promise I'll talk to them. And I was kind of doubtful. But even his mom is amazed now when she comes and sees us at a show. That he's joking around and interacting with people. But I'll tell you, he says the same joke to every person.
But they don't know.
They don't know. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, so that was all the questions, like, generally that I had. But Kim actually has a couple of questions for you guys, so I'll let her take it away.
I do. As far as what you take, what merchandise you choose to sell, you kind of have already hit on it. As far as, Jan, you take the unique items versus the production. That makes perfect sense. And the pre-order thing, that's fabulous. I have no idea. So when we get off here, if I hopped onto your website, would I see the next show listed, and it would say something to the effect of pre-order now and pick up.
No, but that's a great idea.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking, because I would be thinking, okay, I can plan in my budget. There's a bonus for me. And I would know that what I'm hoping to find in your booth is going to be there. But overall, Jan, here, you're unique. So, goodness, other than for Julie and Rick, other than your rulers or the 96% that you make, the other 4% that you don't make, how do you choose what to take so that you're different from the other booths?
Well, the only products that we sell that we don't manufacture are products that support the classes I teach. For example, the batting that we recommend. We don't make batting. I use Steam Light, so we stock that. I like Kai cutters and scissors, so we stock those. But those are really the only products made by other people. But they definitely have a specific purpose and connection to what else we have in the booth. But even beyond that, with the products we do take, we constantly analyze what's selling and what's not. And some products get points just because people come in to see them. But we might only bring 2 because everybody likes to come in and pick up a whatever, and then they put it down and they don't buy it. So we don't carry very many of those. But if it brings you in and you want to look at it, I'm good with that. I mean, we had this thing for all, Rick calls it it's just a kaleidoscope. We carried kaleidoscopes that he makes out of wood. And we carried 2 of them around for a year and nobody ever bought one, but everybody came to play with them. So I said, well, keep putting them out on the counter. It brings people in. And then we went to a show, and the first 2 people that came in the door, literally, we were right next to the door. They walked over and bought those kaleidoscopes. And ever since then, he can't make them fast enough. We often don't even have them. And we don't know why they didn't sell for a year, and we don't know why they do now. But we try to carry them.
Wow. Can I ask something else as far as merchandise and I guess maybe more along the lines of the life of a vendor? You just got back from a show. You were working today, replenishing or whatever. How does that work? So you're home today. Your next show comes up when, and what do you do between now and then? How does that work?
Jan is the one who really races around. She probably has a good answer.
Yeah, I was just say that you 2 are a little different in that aspect.
We are really quite different. Yeah, I do about 40 shows a year, and I don't work in December. And so it's almost every weekend. So usually I'm packing on Tuesday. If it's bad weather in the winter, I'm driving Tuesday night to a hotel so I can sleep there because my flights are at like 5:30 and 6 in the morning. And then I try to get to the venue soon afternoon, and that usually can work out pretty good. At least before the venue closes. I want an hour in the venue so that I can throw everything on the table and get started. And then usually the hour of the morning that we open, they're almost always open 1 or 2 hours before we actually open in the morning. And sometimes that's a better time for me to organize because my brain's shot. If I go up since 2 a.m. and it's a different time zone and it's already 5 o'clock, it's like, oh, I need to go to bed. So I'm a very busy girl. And so when I am home, this last week, we did a crazy one where my husband went with me and I had help at QuiltCon in Phoenix, Arizona. We flew home and I was actually in my own house for 5 hours from about noon to 5 p.m. And then it was an ice storm that night. And so I hopped right back in the car and drove back to that airport hotel and slept there because they give you a week of free parking if you spend a night. So I went and spent my night there and grabbed something to eat and hopped on an airplane at 5 in the next morning. So, and I was at Julie's house last night. The alarm went off at 3 a.m. I jumped in the shower and I was in the car driving at 3:15.
Oh, so when do you make more product?
Well, this week I'm off. I couldn't find a show for March 3 to 5. And so I'm home from March 1 to 10. So I've got 10 days at home and I'm frantically going crazy trying to replenish because these last two shows were both very busy. And so, yeah, I got home about 3 o'clock this afternoon, unpacked my bags, and you can't see the mess, thankfully, but they're all my inventory. And this is the other thing that really, mine is very different than other people in that I don't have it in a trailer and have to haul it in 10 loads. It all moves right through the airport with me. I have 2 wheelies in my left hand and my really heavy carry-on with all my silver in it in my right hand. And
I've lifted it. It's heavy.
It's real heavy. I usually on airplanes, I'm looking for a sturdy young man to help me get it overhead.
Wow. Okay, another question on merchandise. There's got to be a formula to the inventory, the ratio of the size of the show versus, is that how it works?
There is for us. It depends on what size booth we have and how many days the show is. And then we kind of try to forecast, the expected crowd, which is totally guessing, honestly. But we used to carry just a whole van full of stuff, and we'd haul it all in and haul it all out and realize we were beating up our bodies foolishly. So Rick's the master of spreadsheets. So it takes us 3 or 4 spreadsheets to get to any show. And one of them is inventory. And we have a system where we have a couple people working for us back at our warehouse, so they can see our packing list and what we're selling and stuff. So it's been hard. In the last few months, we've really been trying to cut back on what we take with us, but we're actually nailing it pretty well. We hardly ever run out of stuff, but it's really a lot of guessing. And you try to make it educated guessing, but there's nothing to base it on. How do we know that you feel like buying a flamingo template this time? We don't. So yeah, lots of guessing. And this in Daytona, everybody wanted a 72-inch design wall. And some shows everybody wants a 54-inch one, but no one tells us ahead of time. So
pre-order. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, so talking about the different shows, I actually do have a quick question about because I noticed when I was doing the national size shows last year, depending on which part of the country that we were in, was definitely kind of a different vibe. And so I know that Jan, you obviously go all over, but Julie and Rick, do you guys usually stick to the West Coast? I mean, East Coast. How do you guys get out to the West Coast very often? I don't think you do.
We started in Seattle.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah.
We did all West Coast shows, and then we moved to Florida.
Okay. And
we actually crisscrossed back and forth for a couple of years because we had, were established in some of the West Coast shows. The past year getting back, it was safer to stay closer to home. You don't want to drive 3 or 4 days only to have a show shut down or nobody. When we show a green and blue quilt on the West Coast, everyone says, go Seahawks in Arizona. If I show that same quilt on the East Coast, everyone says, wow, well, those are odd colors.
That's true. That's very true.
But people buy pretty much the same stuff. That we haven't noticed a difference with our products.
Jan, would you say there's a different feel or a different crowd?
Well, I tried really hard for a long time to not make anything kind of ethnic or cultural or whatever you want to call that. And then the ladies in Tucson, Arizona insisted I make a sugar skull thimble. And it's a really mixed review. In fact, this weekend at the Florida show, I was saying, so how do you feel about sugar skulls? I have to pick each thimble up and try them on. And if they're going to throw up on me, I don't want to put it on them. Okay. Right. So let's not do that. But yeah, I kind of ask, and I am a Midwest girl. And so you're going to kind of get my Midwest stuff. It's going to be dragonflies and bees and butterflies and cute farming things. There's not a whole lot the men's line in my thing is planets and owls. But I don't make real girly stuff. And so it's not going to be overly feminine. This last year, one of our promoters at one of the shows really specifically asked me to make a tiara thimble for her. And I thought, okay, well, we're going girly now.
Yeah.
So, and we really did. We went crazy with the girly. And I'm finding that there's just as many people that love the really girly stuff as there was people that didn't. And so I'm not a good guesser. There are people that live in Florida that came from Tucson, Arizona, and they love the sugar skulls. And there's other people that are like, oh, what a heathen thing, horrible. No, please don't bring that. Don't let me touch that. And so I don't care. I think they're both cute and adorable. And yeah. There are definitely different feelings from different parts of the country, but I have found since COVID especially that people have moved around a bit. And even if you grew up in Arizona and you understand and love the cultural significance of that desert environment, you may be living in Florida now and it's just transplanted, you don't care. Yeah.
That's a good segue. I know, Kim, you had another question about COVID.
Oh, as far as how are sales now that it's post-COVID versus pre-COVID, how are you planning there? Or let me rephrase that. If you knew Daytona was typically a very busy show, did you plan for that same number of attendees now that it's just barely post-COVID?
Have you noticed changes? Yeah.
Go ahead, Julie.
There's been a little bit lower attendance, but more spending. We call it pent-up spending. So we're planning about the same as we were.
Okay.
And I spent a lot of my COVID years building inventory and doing design work. And so I have a lot more stuff available now and a lot more options for fitting, whatever size or shape of a finger that you have. And so I have been having great shows since COVID. Not maybe right away, early on in the late 2020 when we got started again, but 21 went really well and 22 is really off to a good start too.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I do have a couple of questions that were sent in from some of my newsletter subscribers. So we'll start. I just have two. Darby H. She wanted to know about discounts, and so that kind of I wanted to ask it in a way because she was more referring to like senior discounts and things like that. But I remember specifically. I can't remember which show it was. They all run together now. But there was one booth that I was talking to, and she said she had a customer that got really upset and went on to some social media and was complaining live from the show that nobody had any discounts. And we were talking about that, laughing, going, everything's on sale. Like because there is such a thing as show pricing. So I wanted you guys to talk a little bit about like what is show pricing and how vendors use that as like getting better discounts or better deals, maybe combining things for a better deal, stuff like that at shows versus buying them online.
Well, for us, the advantage of the show is that we're bringing unique products that people really want to see and touch, and it gives you that opportunity. I can tell you though, as someone who's run businesses for years, we call what we pay for our booth rent in our business.
Yeah,
and
me too.
We're paying far more rent at shows than we would in a brick and mortar. And so coming in expecting people to have discounts can be a little bit unrealistic sometimes. Now, we do have a few show specials, but we don't offer blanket discounts because, like seniors, well, come on, almost everybody there is a senior. But I just kind of have strong feelings about that personally, that I want to offer the same fair prices to everybody. So we always try to set our prices at a reasonable rate for everyone. They don't have to have a secret code or a special age or a certain kind of ID. So we offer very few in-show discounts. We're pretty consistent on the ones we do so that everybody that comes to shows would get the same one. But I just am trying to avoid a whole discounting culture where, you know, there's certain stores I won't buy from unless it's on sale or there's a coupon, because we know that's just part of their pricing system. And honestly, I don't want to play that game.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And it's hard to keep track. And then some people are happy and then they go online and they see a different price there and then they're not happy. Yeah. And then, I totally understand that.
And my pieces are all handmade and I just can't do that. I've priced them really carefully. So the discount at a show is that you don't have to pay shipping.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That is definitely, yes, a bonus. Like Julie, you were saying, the pre-orders, back to the pre-orders.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one more question and I'm totally going to butcher her name and I feel so bad for that. I want to say it's Cher Allen. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. If not, and she's watching, I apologize. She lives overseas and actually she comes to the States pre-COVID, and hopefully she's able to come back, and she attends shows when she comes here. And she actually, asked about lists of quilt shops nearby. Like she was hoping that the organizers would put lists of quilt shops that are nearby for people that don't live there. So if they're coming from out of town, they could go to the show and then go visit the shops all in one go. But for you guys, because that's more of an organizer's thing. So for you guys, I was curious about like the different size shows and the local quilt shops that do participate. Like how often do you see the local quilt shops participating at the shows, like actually having their booths at the shows?
We see that quite a bit. And I used to work in a quilt shop. That's kind of how I got started and all this. Interesting to talk to different quilt shop owners. Some are sure that nobody shops with them at a show because they can come to their shop anytime. And some people tell me they get all their new customers by coming to a show. And so I just kind of sit back and watch and with them. And I try to encourage them to offer a special at the show that will entice people to come to their shop. As a vendor who doesn't have a shop, I want the local shops to be extremely successful because they're the ones who are sort of birthing the new quilters, you know.
Yes.
And come see us who only come into town once in a while. So I'm all in favor of really encouraging the local shops. And usually we see several at a show.
Yeah. Kim, did you have any more questions before we get to our final just for fun?
The more we talk, the more questions I have.
I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
I know. I don't know which direction to go.
Well, just remember we have an hour. So
okay. Okay. How about this? Could you each, and when I say each, the duo is one, and then Jan, you're the other. Could you each tell me about your first show? What's your memories of your first show?
Okay. I actually learned my silversmithing from an older lady who was a silversmith who made thimbles. And so I started doing her production work in her studio. And after we'd done that for a while, she had turned 80. So she was 80 or 81 when I went to my first show with her. And she just wanted to see if I could do it, I think. Wanted to see if I was flexible and if I was learning and, the basic stuff. I found out pretty quick that I have a lot of moving parts here, all these little things, and I had to figure out how to keep track of them all. I really needed to figure out how to keep track of them all. This is not easy. And so I love talking to quilters and working with quilters, and I tell them that all the time. I like makers. I'm a maker myself, and we have a lot in common, and so that's one of my big pluses. I feel like I know my own customer because I'm kind of one of them. The first quilt show was a little scary. And even the first year of more quilt shows, I did one with her. And then she said, "Oh, you're doing fine. Go do your own." And I probably did 12 that year, about one a month. And the next year I did about 30. And the next year I'm up to around 40 now, and that's about maxing it out. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of money that you're spending traveling. And so if you don't know what you're doing, you really want to learn fast. You can spend all your money traveling, and if you haven't done whatever it is, brought the right inventory, or really set up your booth well, or if you can't connect with your customer, then you spend a lot of money not doing it right, you know. So I've always tried to stay really flexible and eager to learn from my customers. Really, I'm here to work for you. I'm trying to make thimbles that will fit your fingers, and then all the other beautiful things that go along with that.
Wonderful. Okay.
Julie, you want to talk about your guys' first show?
I remember it vividly. Thank goodness it was only about 30 minutes from our house, but it was a really big show. And they asked if I could fill in for a teacher who couldn't make it and just do a lecture. And I can do a lecture on anything in any time. So I said, sure. And the coordinator kept calling me and saying, are you sure you have enough inventory? You have to have a lot of inventory. Julie, are you sure you're prepared for this? So we prepared twice as much as we usually sold or thought we would sell. And so we go to this show, and I go off and give my lecture, and I'm coming back, and I can't get down the aisle to my booth. I literally could not get through. It was so crowded. And I'm trying to elbow through, and I realized all these people were at my booth. And it was completely insane. And we went home every night and sat in the garage and made more product. And it was our anniversary. It was Rick's birthday. And it was like, happy birthday, honey, put another one together. And that was great. It was a great time, but wow, what an introduction to shows.
Yeah, I could tell you my first, it wasn't a show, but it was one of my first booths that I ever had was actually at my husband's motorcycle club. It was their nationals event. And same thing. I didn't even get to the booth that first day because the inventory was so low that Stefan, my husband, had to work the booth for me because I was at the hotel making more inventory because I totally underestimated it by a yard.
Wow.
But they're fun stories to tell later.
Well, it's really a guessing game every single time.
It
is. You just don't know what you're going to encounter. And like you said, with the post-COVID shows, we all keep thinking, oh, there won't be very many people there. And the last two shows, I've just got slammed both shows. And I'm there all by myself, and Julie's giving me potty breaks. It's not that easy, you know?
Yeah, that's another downside to running the booth by yourself is you got to learn how to not drink anything until you're done.
Yeah,
basically.
And you really don't get much to eat. I really do keep a granola bar in my backpack every time, because you can, when you're just slammed all day, about 4 p.m, you're like, oh my gosh, I would eat anything. Give me a piece of wood. I'll just chew on it. I'm starving.
Like when we were in Reno and Jan and I, was the last day we were done. We got everything down, loaded up, and we went to, I think it was Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah,
and we sat down. It was like, this is what we want, and we will tip you really well if you bring it right now. Like put it to the front of the line right now. So that actually is a really good segue into my just for fun question that I had, which was, Kim actually inspired the after hours, like what we do during a quilt show after hours, obviously in between the setup and teardown.
We eat.
I was just going to say, it's all about the food.
Yeah.
It is. Like, Rona, I seem to remember going to a really expensive Brazilian steakhouse with you.
Yeah.
Yes, that was Dallas.
We didn't even care what it cost. We were starving. Bring us meat.
Yep.
And maybe a little drinky poo with it.
Yeah, and every time they brought a carbohydrate over, it was like, no, protein. Bring back the meat.
Bring that cow over. Yeah.
It is a lot of it is about the food, because that's the way we can all sit down and kind of rehydrate and laugh about whatever crazy thing went on during the day. So we'll hang out in those restaurants for an hour or more almost every night. But the setup and tear down nights are a whole different thing. You're exhausted. By the time you're done, it's like, oh dear, I just want my bed. I got to put my feet up. And we run out of words, don't we? But
yes, my brain literally shuts off by the end of the setup day. I can't think anymore.
Yeah.
And I will say I underestimated that as well. When I did my first national size show, I completely underestimated, one, how much time it would take me to set up that large of a booth, and two, how exhausted I would be afterwards. But again, I was by myself. So it was me load by load carrying it in, because of course I didn't have a cart or anything yet. It was all, Armstrong.
Yeah, I know.
So
it really can be exhausting, and those early morning on the airplane, and then finally getting set up, 12 or 14 hours later in a different time zone, you're like, oh, my brain's done. I just need to sit down somewhere and eat some food,
Yeah. So I think what we've learned from this conversation is it's all about the food.
And Jan really likes carrot cake.
I do. Yes.
If the restaurant
steak
has
salad.
And there's also the sangria. You need a sangria before the meal and a carrot cake after. Boom.
Right. And then you sleep really well.
Yes.
Unless you're on the West Coast from the East Coast, and then you're up at 2 a.m.
Yes. You sleep well for a few hours and then you're wide awake.
Right. Okay. So Kim, did you have any last questions that you wanted to ask before we wrap it up?
I do, and I don't know if this is a good one or not. I told you I could keep asking. Keep asking. Okay. So I hear the stories. I hear the laughter. Y'all sound like a group of coworkers that work for the same company. And you go do your job, and then at lunchtime or after work, you get together and you have fun. That's what I hear. Mm-hmm. But instead of working for someone else, you're working for yourself. So that leads me to, why Vend? Why not have a brick and mortar?
That's a very good question.
It is. And, we question ourselves occasionally too. But for us, we're living our dream, and our dream is to work together and to see the U.S. We both were locked. Yeah, travel's big. We were both locked into very set hours for years, and we don't want to do that anymore. As crazy as the show schedule can be at times, we can just be crazy and go out to dinner, or when we're home. How many times did we go in the pool yesterday, Jan?
Like 4. Yeah, it was a nice warm day. We were working outside and we just kept getting too hot and had to jump in the pool again. Yeah,
it happens.
So yeah, being entrepreneurs and, like Jan said, artists, we like to call our own hours. I'm a night owl, so I'm doing my best work at 10 o'clock or midnight. And we are just really independent. So having a brick and mortar, there's silly things like you have to have open hours, and staff and stuff like that.
That's the thing with me too. A lot of people ask me about a brick and mortar, and I don't want to try to staff the dumb thing. I know. And I also, Julie and I, that's one of the things that we really do have in common, is the love of the travel and being in a different part of the country every week. And if it looks like a cool place, I will leave myself one extra day if I can. When I'm out west, I'll go climb a mountain for a while, or, when I'm at Julie's, I'll hop in her pool. And, we really do have the opportunities to do that. And I can be my own worst enemy when I'm making my schedules. This last week, I had 5 hours at home between 2 4-day shows. So, wow, that was a little fast. So we all can set our own schedules, and I think that really helps. And we do get to be quite a subculture. that we know each other, and we'll
I see
send our
that.
customers to one another for different things. At this last show, Cindy was there, and she's the dyeing fabric lady.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime somebody would come up with purple fingers, I'm like, oh, you saw Cindy today.
Yep.
Yay. How is Cindy?
Every
What's
time.
going on? What are you picking this week? Yeah. And we all have different, it's a rolling list of new classes and new projects and new things that even the vendors learn and then share with their classes. And so it for me, it's a very interesting artist community. And we do all do our own thing. And sometimes we do compete right with one another, our best friends, but everybody seems to kind of get over that. You know, you do what you do and you have what you have. And we don't necessarily tell each other everything about our business, but we do get together in the afternoon. Well, how was the show for you? Well, it really stunk. I'm back in a corner and it's dark and it's really stinks. Or, you know, I was right out front. I got slammed all day. I'm so tired I can hardly stand up. And so we really do share those things. And I enjoy that part of it. I like the subculture.
I definitely have to say that was my favorite part in doing the shows last year. Yeah, was getting that look behind the scenes that, you know, most attendees don't get to see, that kind of, like you said, subculture and that camaraderie between the vendors. And then by the time it was the end of the year and we were in Nashville, and it was like I had vendors coming up to me, oh, hey, it's so good to see you again. And, you know, so it definitely is. And we try to support each other. Like every time I would see, because Off the Wall Quilt has very unique bags and things after people make a purchase, or they'll be walking around with one of their quilted bags and this giant neon ruler sticking out the end of it, and it's, oh, you saw my friend Jan, you know, or Julie, one of the two.
My stuff is usually hidden in a zipper inside.
That's
a purse,
true.
inside
That's
a bag.
true. That's true.
Very deep.
This has been a super fun conversation, and I hope everybody that watches this learns a little bit, laughs a little bit, and definitely comes out to the shows. And if you see any of us out there on the floor, be sure to say hi. And thank you so much, Jan from Thimbles for You, and Julie and Rick from Off the Wall Quilt, and of course Kim, who hopefully maybe one day might be a quilt show vendor. I'm not sure, but in the meantime, check her out at Stitched in Purple. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Rona.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Behind the Quilts podcast, brought to you exclusively thanks to all our fabulous patrons and supporters. Stay tuned next month when we'll be continuing our discussion all about quilt shows live from Quilt Week in Paducah, Kentucky. Until then, as always, my friends, happy quilting.